Parents of bullies, how did you find out your child was a bully, and how did you deal with it? I caught my son and his friends singling out a younger kid who was a bit awkward and watched from a distance a bit as they mocked him. My initial response shocked me, pure rage at my own child for finding he could do this. I stepped away, had a private freak out, then went over to the group. By the time I got there, it was over. The bullying boys had moved on to a new game and the child who was bullied was crying on a jungle gym. I first went to the bullied boy and got down with him and apologized. I explained to him that I expect better from my son and it hurt me to see him hurt too, meaning the bullied boy. I then asked him if I could help make it better. He agreed. I approached my son, took him aside and told him I saw everything. I then explained everything I saw. I then told him to look at the other boy who was crying. I said that is how I feel too. My son fell apart. I asked him if he was ready to make it right and he agreed. I had him go stand with the bullied boy. Then I got the other boys, all of whom I know very well. I brought them all together, explained what I saw and how painful and disappointing it was to see that they are all better and smarter and more sensitive than to do that. They apologized and there were hugs. And then I assured all of them that if I ever saw that again there would be serious consequences and parents would be involved. It got real for them. This was before the start of the school day on the playground. Then I told the teachers everything that happened and asked them to be watchful for the bullied boy. Then I went to my car and sobbed for about 1-2 hours. My son is 4 and has started some bullying behavior. He will call other kids stupid just out of the blue, or talk openly about how much cooler better his choice is than some other kids. His mom and I pretty much nip it in the bud right there. We tell him that saying things like that is not cool, and we have him go up to the kid, apologize, and then compliment them. I really hope that this is just a phase. My friend's son was a bully. When he was called into the school and told all this by the administration, he couldn't believe it. He promised he would take care of it. For the next week this guy bullied the crap out of his son, made fun of him for every little thing. After he ate dinner he would give him some form of dessert and right when his kid was going to eat it he would grab it and either eat it or throw it down the garbage disposable. He teased him if he couldn't keep up with his father in something they were doing. That is, he made fun of him when he missed a shot playing baseball. After a week he sat him down and asked him if he had felt good to be made fun of. Have your stuff taken away etc. And he explained that he was doing the same stuff to the kids in his school. And I guess that really hit home with his 8-year-old son. He hasn't bullied anyone since. And him and his father have a great relationship now. He coaches all his son's teams, plays video games with him, and the kid has a ton of friends now and is extremely polite. When he told me what he was doing I couldn't believe it all. But damn, it worked. It's not something I would recommend doing, but it worked for them. 6 years later and I would be proud to call this teenager my son. I was a bully once. In grade school, I bullied a kid named Eric because he was the smallest one in the class, and I wanted to distract the attention from me onto him. That same year he was diagnosed with cancer. Even as an immature kid I felt like a huge asshole. I did it because I was tired of being the victim. So I sought out another victim to take the bullying. I'm a junior in college now, and Eric is a cancer survivor. If you ever get to read this, I apologize from the bottom of my heart, Eric. I never bullied anyone again, but I never should have done it in the first place. My best friends have a child that is a huge bully. I can tell you they denied it for probably 2 years. Fought every accusation and story or anything bad said about the kid. Finally, when the kid was 11 or 12, they dropped him off at a relative's house to hang out with the cousins for the day. They left, but had to return about 10 minutes later to pick something up. They saw him slapping one of the other kids and saying how their parents didn't love them and were trying to sell them. That was one of the more minor things the kid had been accused of doing. They are pretty sure he shoved another kid down and broke his arm. They apologized to everyone the kid had ever been around, both for the kid's behavior and for them being stupid and denying it. As far as punishing the kid, they took everything except the dresser and bed out of the kid's room, making it almost like a jail cell. That was over a year ago and he still just has the bed and dresser. He's gotten much nicer, but it's hard to tell if it's a act or not. My kid tried bullying once. He used a racial slur on another child. He was grounded for 2 weeks. Apart from apologizing in person, he also had to write a letter of apology to the kid and the school principal, who caught him in the act, and he had to write and report on why he should respect other people. His school principal said he'd never seen a parent react quite so strongly, and wished we all would. By the way, the kid he bullied and he are now good friends. I will do the same if any of his siblings try it as well. They've heard enough horror stories from my wife and I. We were both bullied pretty heavily in school. They should know better. It's not his fault all his classmates are all gaywards. I am not a parent. I am a brother. My dad is visiting and wanted to add his input on this topic. I raised 5 children. 3 boys and 2 girls, all 1 year apart. My middle son was always the one to get picked on and bullied by the others because he was the nicest and least competitive and the smartest by far. They called him names and especially my oldest son would beat him up. I know I should have done more for him. I always told them that one day he would grow up to be bigger than them and they wouldn't be able to hurt him anymore. Well, true to what I said, that was the most successful of my kids. He joined the Marine Corps and got married, and I'll be damned if he isn't the biggest now by 50 pounds. It really got to me about 2 years ago when he came home to visit and my oldest, who bullied him the most, who now is an adult with a wife and kids, with tears in his eyes, apologized to him. He said he was the best out of all of the kids and made the most of his life, and he was so sorry for ever being mean to him. It was probably one of the proudest moments of my life seeing him admit how wrong he was as a kid. I'm proud of all my children, and I hope I'll live long enough to see them become really successful and buy me a boat to retire on. That's all I got. Won't lie. Got a little teary-eyed reading that. My dad's in his 60s now and says them damn internet people don't need to know his ass has the cancers. Hope this old son of H lives to 110. I love my dad. The parents of my bully didn't give 2 flying its. Took my parents, who were on the PTA, to bring it up with the principal repeatedly to get the kid sent to the troubled kids school across town. He turned out a nicer guy after that, but I still ducking hated him. Then he died in Iraq and I didn't really feel bad about it. Don't really feel anything about that. At one point in middle school, grade 8, I unintentionally became a bully to a girl, as did several other students. It was very out of character to me, and I can't even begin to explain why it ever happened. It's ironic, because the 2 years prior I had 2 different bullies, both named Pat, that antagonized me. Considering that, it was so weird that I did it myself. It was a bunch of immature laughing and mocking. I just remember when a counselor came into the class to talk to all of us bastards. At that moment it became very clear to me that this stuff was really hurting. It was a true moment of empathy. I felt really bad. I'm not sure how everyone else felt, but the bullying stopped completely right then, as far as I could tell. In high school I saw her walking home. I caught up with her and walked with her. We talked about a lot of things, but the only part that mattered was when I apologized for being so mean to her. She was a good person, and I still consider this one of the moments in my life I am most ashamed. It never involved my parents, although if it had, I would have gotten some much deserved punishment. How I acted then still haunts me when I think about it. Never underestimate your own ability to be worse than you ever thought possible. There is a potential for villainy hiding in the insecurities and fears of us all. I bullied a girl in elementary school who had no friends. My mother began inviting her over every Saturday and would drag us out to museums and such. I was forced to be nice to the girl and play with her every damned weekend until we actually became friends. I was bullied by an older kid in the neighborhood. I was 3, she was 7. She used to knock me off my big wheel and pull my hair till I cried. My dad told me that the next time she did that to me, I should grab a hold of her hair and just start running. Next day she knocked me off my big wheel. The parents hear this screaming coming from the sidewalk. I had Jessie by her pigtails and was dragging her ass down the street. She never bullied me again, and that is how her mom found out that she was a bully. Shoot. I was really hoping there would be something useful on here. My 5-year-old daughter isn't what I would call a bully, but she's really bossy. She is super cute and smart, and all the kids want to be her friend. But she's not the greatest friend, especially to the kids who are closest to her and worship the ground she walks on. We have talked endlessly about being a good friend, have given her consequences for any time she hasn't been cool to someone and are constantly strategizing on how to deal with various issues. She understands completely on an intellectual level how to be a good friend. But when she gets frustrated, i.e., someone not doing what she wants them to do, she will get mean, saying things like, "If you don't do this, I won't be your friend anymore," or "If you tell your mom what I say, I won't be your friend." She has really hurt people's feeling with some of the stuff she has said. Her brother died 8 months ago, and while I know that some of her behavior is related to wanting more control in her life, she has always had this in her. It's just worse now. She goes to therapy to deal with her grief and we deal with it at home as well. Other than the friend thing, she is doing amazingly well considering she lost her brother. My hope is that she will encounter people who won't take any of her it, as she seems to respond really well to that. We don't have these issues at home because she respects us and we don't let her boss us around. But other 5-year-olds often don't demand respect. She is a wonderful, funny, amazing kid, and I worry that she will grow up lonely because people will get tired of her controlling ways. I recently heard an author on the radio, book is called Bully Nation, talking about addressing bullying. I was really impressed by her insights. One thing she talked about is how parents are often unwilling to accept that their children are bullying others because we approach bullies as us versus them. If your child bullies another child, they are now labeled as a bully, and bullies are horrible bad people. With that mentality, the parent knows their child isn't a horrible bad person, so clearly they weren't really bullying or it wasn't that bad. She went on to describe that we treat bullying different than any other type of learning. We tell our kids what not to do and expect them to get it right from then on. She compared it to teaching them the quadratic formula and asking them to never use it incorrectly. That's obviously not going to happen for most kids. Her point is that children that bully other children may be making mistakes rather than being horrible bad people, and we need to start changing our perceptions on that. We also need to start teaching kids to be more prepared for situations where they might make a mistake and bully another child. I'm sure her book goes into detail about that. I don't have an idea how you'd go about teaching a kid those kind of things. We only had one incident. Got a note home from the school that our daughter was involved with a bullying incident. She and a couple other girls were bullying one girl in the class. Her school is supposed to have a zero tolerance policy, but there was no punishment from the school at all. The note was all they did. I wasn't impressed by that, so we went all out. We emptied her room, took all her toys, all her dress up stuff, her TV privileges, her gaming privileges, everything but the sports she was signed up for that we paid for. Told her she had to earn it all back. She wrote letters of apology to the girl she bullied and then wrote different letters to the girls she was bullying with, and teachers got one. And then we had her write the letter to the rest of the class explaining why bullying was wrong and why she was sorry. She got punished way more than the other girls did, and she complained about this outlet. We responded that we didn't care how the other girls got punished because that was their parents' job, not ours. I had been bullied a lot, so for her to be bullying other kids was horrifying to me. Thankfully she has learned a lesson. I hope so anyways. That was almost 2 years ago and there hasn't been any sign of occurrence. Most of the worst bullies won't have parents who accept their child as a bully. My nephew didn't start to bullying until he hit high school and befriended the wrong types of kids. My sister was pretty much in denial about it until he was suspended for fighting. Her first reaction was to ground him, which didn't help at all. He was still getting in trouble and his grades were declining. She got him a tutor and he ended up getting in trouble with the law when he and his stupid friends egged the tutor. After that, they took away all of his privileges. No TV, video games, computer, unless monitored use for school work, going out, etc. They started charging him rent, which meant he had to get a job. If he didn't pay, he'd have to go stay at his grandma's, who would make him go to church and hang out with her old lady friends. He started stealing from his workplace to pay his rent. So obviously this solution was not working at all. Finally his dad worked out an arrangement that during their equivalent of homeroom, they would go to each classroom to discuss bullying. He'd make his son confess what he has done in the past and open up a dialogue about how others have felt after being bullied. After going to every single class and hearing firsthand how people were made to feel, He realized what he was doing was awful and can stay with people for a long time even after the bullying ended for them. He didn't want to be the person somebody remembers as the reason high school was hell for them. No child that has bullied my own child has ever even apologized for their behavior. Teachers have never done anything, nor have parents, to stop it. He is now very wary of what all people say and do, which is a horrible thing he must endure. I would say that most bullies' parents are in denial of the issues, and many comments as to how they deal with them may well be few and far between. But excellent question. Not particularly what you wanted, but it was really good parenting. When I went into secondary school I was scared out of my mind. There were these particular boys who would call me all sorts, and me not being the fighting kind I was an easy target. What made it easier was that I had epilepsy, so when they found out they took it as a sign to take the piss out of me 24/7 until I just broke down in the middle of lunch and walked to the head teacher, principal, office. Parents got involved and the boys got suspended. What was great was that one of the mums made their son write a letter. A huge 2-sided A4 letter explaining how sorry he was and how he knew I couldn't control it. It also stated the boy's aunt had some form of seizures regularly and that his mother was disappointed with him. I told him how much a letter like that meant to me and we became mutual friends. As for the others, they stopped the bullying. I have a vivid memory from early elementary school of standing on top of the jungle gym and watching the only kid with glasses walk past and yelling, "Hey 4 eyes, you look stupid, ha ha ha." Literally 2 days later I went to the optometrist and got my own glasses. I never apologized to the kid, but I also realized how people aren't defined by their circumstances, and I certainly stopped doing that kind of thing anymore. I'll answer in lieu of my father as he doesn't read it. Long story short, he went ballistic. I had been bullied rather harshly for a couple years in grade school but I never said anything about it. One day, a family friend's kid witnessed said bullying, beating, and told his parents who told my parents. That night my dad wasn't home. Turns out he was going around to all my bullies' houses and absolutely berating their parents. He was pissed. Didn't really help my cause much. After that he told me it was fine to fight back to defend myself, even if it got me in trouble. Time took its course, and now I'm pretty good friends with a bunch of those guys 20 years later. When my mom was a kid she was a bully. She got into fights all the time. One girl in particular she had been tormenting for quite some time with plenty of childish bully classics. At the height of it all, my mom said she beat the it out of this poor girl. The next day my mom was at home and she answered the door, and there was a victim, black and blue, and the girl's mother. The girl's mom asked to speak with my grandma. My mom was sure she was in for it when my grandma came to the door. Instead of ratting out my mom, or discussing the beating, or any of the bullying, this girl's mother said to my grandma, "My daughter is having a birthday party this Saturday and we would really like it if Joe came to it." She went to the party, completely humbled. Her mom never found out that she was a terrible bully, and my mom never did any of that again. I don't think this is the approach I'd take if someone was bullying my kid, but it paid off in this case. And I think it's interesting that this woman would use this tact, and even stranger that it worked at humbling my mother and making her feel empathy for her victim. Edit, words and spelling and stuff. I used to know a wealthy family that practically encouraged their kids to bullying. The whole town hated them and shunned them from all neighborhood parties. The wife of the family even tried to shut down the neighborhood's favorite pub, as far as anyone can tell, just to be rich to everyone else. She spoke with the judge and demanded they shut it down on the grounds that they had served alcohol to minors. The judge responded that the pub has never been convicted of doing so, but her son, who rented a house across the street from the pub, had been convicted of doing so on several occasions. That shut her up. I never became a bully because my parents stopped it when it was just a little girl being insensitive. We had secret Santas and I didn't get along with most of the girls in my class. I had a friend and that's who I wanted to give a present to. I got the slip and it was another girl. She wasn't mean to me. We just didn't mesh well. I told my parents that I'd gotten my friend's name and we went shopping. Our teacher knew my relationship with the kids and me and called my parents to make sure everyone was getting the right information. When my parents found out I lied, I was asked the fate question, how would you feel if you had received no presents while other kids in the class got two? My mum told me that I was acting like the evil stepsisters from Cinderella and had me wash the kitchen floor with a rag and a bucket to drive home the point. Obviously 7-year-old me didn't really do more than get the floor wet, but it was creative punishment. I never became a bully, and I think it was because a teacher caught it early and my parents owned up to it and made me own up to it too and experience the pain I would have inflicted on others in a way I could understand. I'd like to add my 2 cents of what happened when bullying behavior was reported. My stepson claimed that he was being bullied by 2 kids while walking home each day in elementary school. My husband spoke to the principal about it once. Since the behavior continued, my husband went back in and told her that if she didn't do something, he just might have to. I have no idea what he'd actually do. But, with that, the principal hid in the woods across the street from the school that very afternoon and witnessed the 2 boys throwing rocks at my stepson. She marched them right back to school, where she dealt with it there, and the bullying stopped cold. He's in high school now, and things are fine. I like that she did that, but didn't like that she had to be told twice. Not quite the same as topic, but something that happened. I work at a restaurant, and the owner keeps an employee who seems to be mildly autistic. We get along. He's a really nice kid. He works hard and is proud of it. One day, he asks me if I go on Facebook. I tell him of course, and that everyone does. I just assume he wants to be FB friends. He then says, me too, but I need to get off. People keep saying mean things to me. Then it all hit home. For years I've read Encyclopedia Dramatica, laughed at all the freaks they found, and even get joy from the way they pranked these people. I feel bad about how I used to be, and how I sometimes still am. Man. Not a parent, but I have a tale. When I was in, let's say, 4th grade, my parents finally put a phone in my room so I could chat with friends. It was one of those orange and purple Nickelodeon phones that had a big long curly cord, and I was so thrilled. I had always been a pretty good kid. I had a lot of friends, but we weren't the cool kids, so we got picked on sometimes. I never really bullied anyone before this. A girl, who we will call Emily, I had been friends with, told some other people about my crush on a boy in our class. Huge problems of a 4th grader, right? I got mad at her and wanted revenge, so I used my new phone for evil. I had a friend come over to my house and we would prank call Emily's house. We would just call, ask for Emily, and then when she answered we would hang up on her. Like, wow, lol. We must have done this well over 100 times over the course of a week. My parents found out somehow. I think caller ID was involved, but one day I came home from school and my phone was gone, as well as my TV out of my room. I was confused. I had no idea how they could have found out about all the calls. I heard a knock on the door and my dad calling me from our foyer, so I walk over to see a cop standing in our living room. I stood there, in silence, as he said, "Are you woman in flannel? Your parents gave me a call. We need to have a chat." Prank calling is never funny and the people you were harassing were very scared. Something like this could have you wound up in jail, or some crap lie like that. Oh man, I about it my damn pants and never bullied anyone ever again after that. I have 2 school-age kids. The oldest was apparently a bully for a few weeks at her new school before I found out about it. When I found out, I took all privileges away: games, TV, playdates with friends, phone calls, and asked her sister to look out for the kids that were getting picked on. About a week into this, I get a note from a teacher describing the funniest damn thing. "Your youngest child was in a confrontation with her sister today. I heard the older child telling a peer that they were stupid. Sin, youngest, then told Steph, oldest, you're one to talk. That potato is smarter than you." I know, cause I have seen your grades, at which point the entire group started laughing. Steph has ceased picking on other kids according to her teacher, and her sister's most recent burn involved Cool Ranch Doritos, and that eating them doesn't make you any cooler. They are 10 and 8. Apparently having your younger sibling make you look like a moron in front of classmates is enough to break bad behavior. And also, it got the older one to buckle down with her schoolwork. Grades have came up a whole letter grade in the last 4 weeks. I received a call from the after-school daycare my son attended. This was last year, so 5th grade. Evidently him and his friends were giving another little boy a hard time. This little boy put on a play, and my son and his friends thought it was dumb, and acted that way. Well, this little boy is autistic. I work with children with an array of disabilities and conditions. So I always thought I taught my kids compassion. I took my son back to daycare to apologize to the child. I waited for the child's mother to pick her little boy up and I made my son apologize to her as well. I actually cried when I was explaining to him, in front of the daycare provider, how it was to do that to another human. When he got home, he had to write a letter to the daycare provider outlining what he did wrong, why it was wrong and how he'll be a better person in the future. Oh, and his ass was grounded for a good long time. So far, so good.